Welcome to the Flowering Daydream Podcast, where daydreams become reality. I'm your host, Charlene Windus. Today, we are going to talk about forecasting and intentions, and I will be doing a collective reading at the end of the episode. I just want to say thank you for listening to the podcast, and thank you for all of the support that I've received since starting the podcast. I am trying to figure out the cadence of the podcast. I was trying to release weekly, but I think I'm going to shift to every other week. And if I have the time and the space to be able to add in an additional bonus episode, I'll do that. But I think from here on out that the episode releases will be every other week. I want to welcome you to a new season, a new cycle, a new year, fresh, new energy, releasing the old and calling in the new. I wish all of you listening and everyone all around the world many blessings, good health, and a solid deepening of your connection spiritually, internally, and to the earth in 2022. So I wanted to talk about forecasting and intention setting just to kick off the year with grounding in how you want to direct energy for this year. But also, I do want to talk about how different my husband and I's practices are and how different yours may be and how they can be very fluid and changeable and just pretty much be whatever works for you. He loves to set goals and he really tries to attain these goals, and he's very motivated by these goals, and so he's very specific. You know, like I think last year he said he wanted to work out like 150 times or something like that, or at least get some exercise, some solid exercise. And so he really, went for this very specific number and this very specific goal. That, however, doesn't work for me, and so I like to set intentions because intentions are not goals, and intentions are very fluid and changeable, and there's no disappointment or failure like you might get if you don't meet your goal. And I'm not motivated by goals, so intentions work for me, but goals work for my husband. And so it's really about, hey, what do I resonate with and what gets me motivated and what helps keep me focused and where do I gain my own clarity and what are those practices, and do that. Today we're going to talk about intentions and forecasting because that's something that I have experience with, and I'll share that with you. So intentions are how we can direct our energy, and we need actions to back our intentions. And so where our environment and foundations already exist do matter when we set intentions. And so when we talk about things like manifesting, you can't manifest your way out of something like a domestic violence relationship. You can't manifest your way out of a impoverished situation. You can't manifest yourself out of racism, things like that. So I want to make sure that I'm really clear that when we set intentions, we are directing our energy, and these intentions are coming from a heartfelt space, but they have to be backed with an action plan. And you also have to take into consideration the environment and the foundation and the things that are already at your solid base when you're setting these intentions if you want them to be successful. So for me, intentions are, things like breaking a cycle, creating a new habit or pattern in my life, drawing in particular energies, new relationships, new work dynamics, if that's something that you want. Just really thinking about where do I want to spend my time and energy and what do I want to create. So I like to include what my dreams are within those intentions, my daydreams, and really look at how that might be practical and feasible as well. So not just the spiritual side or the energetic side, but what seems really actually attainable within my intentions and what amount of effort am I going to be applying to, drawing these intentions in with this energy. And so I try to make it really realistic and completely attainable. And so if you don't know what your own personal thresholds are for that, sometimes it takes a couple of years of trying these things out to practice and sort of see, what might work for you. And then with forecasting, forecasting is a way to look at the energy that is coming in for you for the next 6 months or 12 months or however long you're looking at. It's not a solid black and white thing. It's more of an illumination, a guide, and more of a support. I'm not like a huge huge fan of like solid psychic predictions. I mean, I know that they have their place and sometimes they're helpful, but if we give a solid psychic prediction, like on September 28th, you are going to meet the love of your life in this very specific destination, things like that, then people end up living by what you say. They don't pay attention to all the other things that they might be missing that are happening outside of that one thing. And they place all of their energy on that one thing. And then they can also place energetic blame on the result to the person that gave the reading. Or they'll say that it wasn't accurate or, whatever it may be. And so I've just had enough experiences and I've witnessed enough readings to know that it's better to really be upfront about this being a support tool when you do a forecast reading, not an end-all be-all, not something that you live your life by. And, I think when it comes to clairvoyance or divination or forecasting and things like that, it really does depend a lot. The outcome and the accuracy depends a lot on the container that the person is creating to do the reading. There's safety involved in the creation of that container. There's spiritual energy that you're calling into that container. And if those relationships are not built in a heart-centered, heartfelt, strong foundation with a back and forth rapport, then outside influencing factors can make readings not accurate. Readings can be inaccurate if someone is under the influence of alcohol or drugs while they're reading. There's other energies that can influence divination and also your psychic ability if you're not well rested and well hydrated and very secure in the settings and the protections that you make and the intentions that you set when you do forecast reading or psychic reading. And so there's just a lot of factors that I think can influence the accuracy of an outcome, and also just getting out of the way of our own personal opinions and also just the way that we might perceive the information coming in. So also keeping open to the translation of the energy coming in. And I've noticed too that sometimes it's in your face and very blatant, and other times it's like a mystery that you need to solve. So when it comes to this like forward looking information, I had an experience the very first time that I actually heard a spirit, and I was giving a facial, and I didn't see her at the time. I just heard her, and she said, and I just heard this out loud while my client was asleep and I was giving her a face massage. And she said, "Tell her I said I'm sorry." And I may have explained this in another episode. I can't remember, but I'm going to tell it again if I did. I remember thinking, okay, my client's asleep. I'm hearing things, And then I ignored it, and this time she said it louder and with a little bit more tone. And I remember being like, oh boy, I started to panic. And so I had to gather myself, and I had two choices. I could either confront this voice, like me talking right now is very loud. It wasn't in my head, although lots of times the voices come through my own voice or my own thought. This time it was actually like outside of me, and I could hear it just like talking to another person. And so I decided to confront it, and she had a very specific message for her sister that I was giving a facial to. And so when I figured out that this was actually a spirit or a ghost, technically a ghost, I felt a lot better, of course, about what was happening. But I also was like, wow, this was very straightforward and very specific. And it kind of changed the course of my whole life, because prior to that moment, I didn't really know if what happened after we died. And so just to be able to hear this communication coming from someone who didn't have a body, who was very specific and had very specific information for this sister who I had never met her before this had happened. And so that was a blatant, straightforward, in my face, sort of energetic communication. And then another time I was translating for another ghost, and ghosts are just people that have died and haven't moved on to wherever they need to go to. I don't really think of them as like a scary thing. They're just humans generally. And so this time the spirit was showing me, or the ghost was showing me, a watch. And so I thought he said he wanted me to tell the loved ones that were still here that he wanted them to have his watch. That's not what he was saying though. And I later figured out in another communication with him that what he was saying was, by pointing at the watch, what he was trying to say was that he didn't have enough time with the loved ones here because he died young. And so that wasn't blatant. I didn't hear it plain as day, and it wasn't extremely clear. It was just him showing me a watch. And so it was up to me to ask more questions and figure out what the watch was symbolizing. reading, because for whatever reason, our communication wasn't on exactly the same page. And so when I talk about readings and forecasting, the information can be up for interpretation like that, because at the moment I told the family that he wanted them to have his watch, but that's not, that wasn't what he meant. What he meant was he wanted more time with the family, and that time was cut too short. And so those are just two examples of sort of how energetic communication can be very forward or kind of a mystery or a puzzle that we need to solve and figure out. So that leaves a lot of room for accuracy. And in general, though, I think that for the most part, the overall theme or story comes through, or message that needs to be coming through will come through. But I just want to say that if it's like black and white, and this is a specific thing when we do forecasting, that you're probably going to be disappointed. Sometimes it'll be spot on, sometimes it won't. And I also think it sidetracks us from living and from focusing on the things that are surrounding that. And instead, we just get very hyper focused on that one event. So that's my opinion on that. So with forecasting, there's a number of different ways we can do forecasting. We can do scrying, we can do tea leaf readings, tarot, pendulums, runes. Any divination or energy reading tool or process can be worked with to do forecasting. So today I'm going to share with you my favorite session that I've developed over time, and why I think it's important to book it with a professional or book it with someone who has some experience and knows what they're doing versus trying it yourself. However, you can absolutely do it yourself, especially if you have some skills and faculties already developed around energy reading and energy skills. The reason why I think it's important to book it with someone else is that, number one, I think it's amazing to have space being held for you to help you gain clarity and set the foundations for your intentions for the coming year. And forecasting can be done on your birthday, on a new season, on any day of the year. It doesn't have to be a New Year's thing that you do. So there's no time frame on when you can have this done. So you can do it whenever you want. But when you book it professionally, the space is held for you, and it just has a different feeling than when you do it yourself. Also, we're very emotionally involved in sort of the outcome of our life or what we want. And sometimes that energy, if we're not really good at separating that ourselves, can get in the way and sort of, sway the reading in a sense. Another reason is the container that is built for the reading. And so that's the prayer, the intentions, the safety, what helping spirits and helping energies are in that container, and what's the relationship to the reader of those energies, and does that feel good to you, and does that resonate with you? And so that's why it's nice to have someone else do it, especially if they've been doing it for a while and they have like a good system down. So I like to book one every year with another professional and, have that space held for myself. But some years I do it myself, and it can be done. So the first thing I like to do in these forecasting and intention setting sessions is I'll get your birth date, and I'll look at the tarot birth card that you have, which is an archetype, and everyone is born with one, sometimes two. It could be one for your personality and one for your birth or your soul card. And so it's a lot like astrology or human design in the sense that you can get an idea of sort of the energetic blueprint within the tarot that is associated to your birth date. And then there's also the growth year cycle, so the year that you're in now and the year that you will have coming up. And so we can take your birth date and also find out like, hey, what is the archetype of the energy that you're in for the coming year, and what are you in now? And it kind of gives us a little heads up about what, kind of coming your way and how to work with that energy. And then I like to draw 2 to 3 cards per month. So if we're looking at the next 12 months, I'll take 2 or 3 different decks, and I will draw a card for each month in the coming year. And I like to have a variety of oracle decks, and sometimes I'll sprinkle in the tarot as well. But I like to have a deck that has a shadow side to it and a light side, so that you can have some versatility about the challenges and growth opportunities that might be coming your way. And then I like to have a deck that gives me just one word or one simple reading, and then I can, if I need to, I can draw another card to get a little bit more information. But what I'm asking during these months is just like, hey, what's the energy coming during this time of the year for this person, and looking at what that might look like. And that it's not to have you avoid certain things or to be thinking about certain things. It's about like, okay, maybe next year I want to get married or have a child or buy a house, or maybe I want to start a business, or maybe I want to move to a different part of the world, or, whatever the thing is that you think that you might want. This will help you look at, this might be the better months to do something like that in, and this might be the months that is going to make it more challenging. So it's not that you can't do whatever you want whenever you want. It's just looking at the forecasting will allow you to see like, oh, this month looks like the energy is really light. This month looks like it's a good month to rest and sit still and work on some internal things. So it just sort of gives you an idea of where you might find your challenges. And then you're able to pair up the things that you're doing with the energy that's coming in to sort of amplify your intentions and amplify your focus for that year. And then I like to pull a couple of cards for a theme of the year, maybe a spiritual message for the individual, maybe whatever the growth card is for the year, a little bit more information on that. And then once I've looked at that reading, which it tells a story, it's not literal. Sometimes it's really literal, but most of the time it's just a story going on, and you kind of look at sort of the ups and the downs and the all arounds of sort of what's coming in your year energetically. And then I like to take a white candle, and I like to take a toothpick or something that you can sort of scribe into the candle and put the intentions that you want and be very specific. And then I like to take disappearing paper, the dissolving paper, and write on the paper what the things are that you want to release energetically are, and then create a ritual or lead the session in ritual. And so after you have scribed into the candle all of your intentions, and they can be limitless, there's no limit, you would burn the candle all the way down to the ground to release those intentions into the universe, and preferably a white candle so it's sort of a blank canvas that you're creating on. And then you would write all the things that you want to release on the disappearing paper or disintegrating paper that you put in water, and it just disappears. And then you put that in the water and allow that to disintegrate, and then take that bowl of water and return it to the earth, so that you're sort of pulling energy out, you're drawing energy in, and you've already done the forecasting so that they can sort of pair up and marry each other to create this sort of energetic foundation for the following year. So that's the session that I like to do, that I've created. And then you're able to set your intentions to align with the reading, with the energy coming in. You don't have to, but it's kind of fun to see how that pans out. And then once you've completed the ritual, you have to create an action plan. So what are the actions that you'll take to match these intentions? How will you bring this energy forward? And then you have to create a practice that reminds you of this daily. Because if we just do a ritual and then we kind of forget about it, the energy is still sort of percolating and working, but we have to tend to the energy to keep that energy strong and alive and going. And so that can be so many different things. And again, that's what resonates with you. You could light a candle each day and review your intentions. You could make an altar for the coming year. You could make a vision board. You could have a journal where you write a little sentence each day. You could have a daily prayer that you go through. You know, anything really, whatever works for you, but something that kind of reminds you every day of the intentions that you've set and the action plan that you've created. For example, if you wanted to write a book, you would have to set out the action plan. You would have to create an outline. You would have to write the book. You would have to figure out, who's going to edit it, are you going to self-publish? Are you going to try to look for a publisher? Who do you think the book, your demographic is? It's sort of like you have to do all this back end work. And what's really interesting and what I've noticed in a lot of clients over the years and just people in general is that we might want something or set this big intention or small intention, but we may not have the skills needed and all the areas needed to get it off the ground, get whatever this intention is off the ground. And it's like, don't get discouraged if you don't have the skills for all the areas. If you have access to the internet, you can figure out how to do almost anything on the internet. Like my dad, his brakes went out and I asked him if he took it in to get them fixed. And he's like, no, I did it myself. And I was like, oh, I didn't know you could change brakes. And he's like, I didn't know how. I just actually YouTubed it and did it through YouTube. And I was like, what? And he knows how to fix things and do things, and he does things on cars and stuff. But I just thought, okay, well, this is true. Like you can look up just about anything and get the steps on, what you need to do. And you don't have to know what you're doing. You don't need confidence. You don't need all the things to be perfect. You don't need, for example, I have the podcast, right? And I'm in my closet. This is where I record. It's a walk-in closet. It's not like a tiny closet, but I'm still on the floor in my closet because it sounds the best in here. And I just have one professional mic and my computer. and I edit with a free editing software called Audacity. And is it perfect? Does it sound professional? Are there a lot of mistakes? Does it really matter? No, because I think the content is really good that's being delivered, and it's not so bad that you're, the editing and the sound isn't so bad that you can't listen to it, And like, does any of that really matter though? I don't know. I don't know that we need everything perfectly wrapped up in a bow to have a great outcome. So the point of that is that you just need to go for it. You just need to try, and the internet has everything you need to know to help yourself get started in the areas that maybe you're unsure of. And sometimes I have people ask me, well, what exactly are intentions? And I want to talk about being really specific with intentions. So intentions can be anything that you want. I recommend it be coming from your heart, so heart-centered, and your intentions must be about you only, not someone else. And it could be anything from letting go of energy, new behaviors and cycles, wanting to try something new, saying no to things, attracting new relationships, starting a business, writing a book, things I want to change about myself in a positive way. What are those things? And again, I can't remember where I've already told this because I teach classes and talk a lot about this type of stuff, and I've lost count of where I've shared all this information. But I did long ago, I practiced this exercise because I wanted to experiment with intention setting and manifesting and things like that. And I wasn't very specific. I needed more money, more funds. And so I thought of it as abundance. And I would pray every day. I would set intentions every day. I had some rituals around it. And I was really focusing intently on simply just the energy side of this. And what's really interesting is I did start getting random things happen. Like I got a $25 check in the mail from my bank saying thanks for the referral. And I don't even think that there's a program like that. And I never referred anyone. So I thought that's weird. And then I got a reimbursement check from my cell phone and a reimbursement check from our car insurance that year saying that we overpaid. And of course, I'm like, oh my God, it's working. Like, these weird checks are coming in the mail. My husband's like, well, that was money that was supposed to be ours anyway. I'm like, so? It's still money coming in that we thought was gone that's not gone. Not only did these random checks come in the mail, which I thought was really fascinating, is I also started getting an overabundance of junk mail and people donating things. Like I had somebody drop some stuff off and not even ask, and they just left it on my porch. And I'm like, what is going on? And so it was like the garbage was more, it was just weird. And I'm thinking, oh, okay, I see what's happening. If we're not specific, and it wasn't, I didn't get a lot of money or big checks or anything like that. It was just these random little things that were coming in, and then also more garbage and junk mail. So I just thought it was really funny. And it's like, okay, so we have to be a lot more specific, and it has to be in alignment with your highest good, and it has to be heart-centered, and we have to pay attention to the actions that are going to ignite the intentions as well. And that is sort of the ingredients that create the success around our intentions. And the other thing I want to mention is that energy is fluid. We have free will, and every choice that we make can change the forecasting outcome that we have created through our divination tools or through our energy practices. And so it's sort of a constant changing thing. Another reason why not to lock into it and be so secure with it, but to look at it again and again if you feel like things have changed course. So, and you want to document your forecasting and your intention setting somewhere through a journal or through a vision board or through a video or a picture, something to look back on and sort of check in on. And then if you get 2 or 3 months into the forecasting and you notice things are not aligned, then you might want to do it again. Things may have changed so much that it's time to look again or take another look. But for the most part, I find that the 12 months ahead in the forecasting tends to be a pretty good illumination and guide and support to the coming year. So I think intention setting and forecasting can be a really powerful support tool, a really powerful energetic foundation, and just a way to gather all of your energy and focus with clarity and be able to strengthen your internal foundation for the next year to come or 6 months to come. And again, this can be done on your birthday every year, or when a new season and cycle starts, or at the end and beginning of a new year, whatever works for you. And so I did a collective reading, a collective forecast reading to share with you all And what that means is this applies to all of us, to everyone. And it's general, and especially when we're talking about the collective. But I asked about a few key things, and I thought that the answers were really beautiful and had some really amazing messages. So I think what's really interesting is just the deep underlying messages and in forecasting, and really paying attention to what comes up in your body when we're talking about these readings. And what comes up for you is going to be unique and different for each person, even though the reading is speaking to us all in general terms. So the first thing I asked about was COVID. I definitely have been tracking this from the beginning. And I want to say before I go into this reading that COVID sucks. It's a real thing, and people are dying and people are getting sick. I have asthma. I don't want to get COVID, but it is a part of our life right now. And from what I can tell, it's not going anywhere anytime soon. In fact, it may be here forever, just in various forms. And so when I'm doing a reading about COVID, I'm not asking like, what's going to make this go away, or how do we not die from COVID? You know, we're looking generally at what is the energy that we can collect around COVID in general. And if you've been directly affected by COVID, I know my dad has lost 3 friends now to COVID, and I know many people who have had COVID and are having some long-term side effects that are really awful. This isn't about the physical aspects of COVID. This is not what the reading is. So I want to make sure that I discern that before I move forward. This is about the energetic aspects of COVID, which are completely different than the physical aspects of COVID. The first oracle card that I got for the reading around COVID for 2022, I pulled from one of my favorite decks, the Mystical Shaman Oracle deck by Alberto Villoldo and Colette Baron Reed and Marcela Lobos. So the first card we got was number 45, which is the Seer. And what this is asking us, what COVID is asking us energetically, is to reach beyond the obvious details into the hidden realms where the information is available to us with discernment to be able to perceive it, and seeing the truth above all else without judgment, being able to read between the lines and see what is not being said, trusting your intuition, and being okay that you might feel lost and that this feels like kind of a maze, but that the hidden realms don't follow a 2-dimensional map. This is about trusting your gut and allowing your perception and circumstances to widen and to include the nuances and subtle cues that we might normally miss if we take things at face value. This is just reiterating that we all have this internal magic and that we all have this internal vision, and it's asking us to challenge ourselves to get out of denial and to begin telling ourselves the truth about the situation. Wishful thinking is not going to make what we want to happen, and when we're refusing to see things the way that they are, the truth might hurt, but it is going to set us free to be able to claim the bounty that is waiting if we notice it. And so taking a moment of true power and surrendering to vision and to spirit and to energy and to be shown the truth, to open our eyes and to receive a powerful gift. When a reading says something like that, again, it's not black and white, and I teach about this in 2 of my oracle card classes that I have on Udemy. You're thinking about, sort of more in general, this is about coming together. This is about not fighting. This is about not judging. This is about seeing beyond what is at face value here. This is about looking at the earth, looking at the healing that needs to take place in the earth, looking at our communities and the healing that needs to take place in our communities and within the collective. And this is about how we treat each other. And this is about how we value each other. And this is about respecting our neighbor, even if we don't know who they are. And this is about looking just a lot deeper. And this is also about reconnecting to that spiritual innate energy, reconnecting to our hearts. And if we were all operating from a heart-centered place, everything revolving around this would get worked out. It may still be here and it may still be a challenge, but overall, we would be able to get everyone in the world what they needed if we all came together. And also paying attention to why they're happening and what's going on in the earth and what's happening in our communities, contributing to why these viruses can develop. This is like a wake-up call. This is like, hey, wake up. Like, there are a lot of things in our lives that need to change and a lot of healing that needs to happen. And this is giving us an opportunity to do that on an energetic level. The physical stuff sucks and it's awful. But on an energetic level, there are some opportunities here that we can take from this, some growth opportunities. So then I pulled another card just for some additional clarity. And this time I pulled from one of my favorite decks, the Woman Runes deck by Molly Reamer and Shekinah Mountain Water. And for this one, I pulled the Spiral, which is number 36 in the deck. And this is a rite of passage and a rune of initiation. This is a journeying rune, surrendering moments, grace and struggles, hopeful pauses, liminal spaces, leaps of faith. How have you celebrated transitions? What rites of passage are you waiting for? What initiations are waiting for you? What sacred work calls your name? To what holy purpose will you be dedicated? Initiation is a path and a process, not a single discrete event. Much like rites of passage mark transitions from one point to another, continuously unfolding in a spiral of time, person, and space, one's whole life can be a process of initiation. Initiation into your own existence. Who are you? Who can you be? What holy flame sparks your name? What task ignites your heart song? What place awaits your visit? What people hunger for your touch? This is the rune of initiation and change. It's time for a dedication to your sacred path. And so what I think is interesting about both of those cards is, again, it's about getting you on the right path. It's a wake-up call. It's about getting you on the right track. Are you doing what matters to you? Are you following your heart? Are you living connected to yourself and to each other and to the earth? You know, how are we walking? And in what way do we want to walk on this earth? And so those are the opportunities around the energy for 2022. You know, and anytime an illness strikes or any type of a experience that is tragic in our lives, it's awful. And there are so many parts about it that cause grief and overwhelm and anger, financial distress and family distress, and so many things that are very difficult to navigate through. And at the same time, I think it's both and. At the same time, I don't know anyone that's been struck by illness or tragedy and hasn't woken up in some way to a new level of awareness, to a new path, and to a new way of being. And so I would hold that in your heart as we move forward. And of course, take all the obvious precautions and be thinking about each other and your neighbor and our community and how we can work together. So then I asked a question about the earth for 2022 and what the message from the earth is to all of us. And for this question, I pulled from the Denise Linn, the Sacred Forest Oracle. I'm really obsessed with all of Denise Linn's work. Linn is Linn. What is so amazing is that I asked the earth to draw a card for us to tell us, you know, a message for 2022, and there are 52 cards in this deck. And of course, we picked number 14, the Earth Spirit, which is the stability card. The Earth Spirit provides trees, plants, flowers, rivers, streams, oceans, mountains, and valleys, and supports us all with her bounty. She's stable and strong in her devotion to us. You are supported and loved, even if you're not always sure of it. The seeds that you plant now will bring abundance in the future, but only if you take the time to nurture those new beginnings. The Spirit of the Earth says, be present in the moment, slow down, and let go of the busyness and frenetic pace of life. Explore your roots, honor your past, go deep, and reflect on your life. Wow. What a beautiful message from the earth, just letting us know that she's here for us, she's supporting us, she's nourishing us, she wants us to slow down, she wants us to let go of this fast pace, she wants us to honor our past, connect with our ancestors, go deep into our hearts, and really reflect, am I in alignment with that? And again, this doesn't dismiss or discount things like losing our jobs and becoming homeless because of these circumstances and things like that. Those are all really hard and difficult things, and we've all been affected on that level as well, on the physical level. But again, I want to reiterate that this is the energetic level of the reading, not the physical level. So then I asked for a message for the community, and I pulled from Kyle Gray's deck, The Keepers of Light. I love this deck. And the card that I pulled was Odin, which is your third eye is open and sees the truth for what it is, follow your intuition. But the extended message is about being encouraged to look beyond what our physical eyes are showing us and to look within to follow our intuition. It's a good time to plan ahead. So this is the second card that we've gotten about planning ahead. So I wonder if that means more preparations for more shutdowns. You know, I would be thinking about something like that, possibly. Or it could also be preparations for something else. Or it could also just be a reminder that we should, really build our foundations in our home, in ourselves, and in our hearts. So the messages can be perceived in a number of ways. It's important to keep your mind and energy focused on the best possible outcome. So again, this is just another message at really being empowered by going inward and connecting to our heart and our own intuition. And in regards to our community, this is how we be connected. If we're all walking in a heart heart-centered way, then our decisions are going to be in a heart-centered way. Our decisions are going to be made in a way that is helpful to all of us, not just to yourself. And then I asked for a question about relationships in general. And there's no author or illustrator name on this deck, but it's from knockknockstuff.com, and it's called Affirmators, Love, and Relationships. So the card that I pulled for this is about listening. There's an elephant, and then there's a little mouse on a ladder that's up in the elephant's ear. And so this says, I activate my receptive side and become engaged, intuitive, and professional-grade listener. Supercharged listening gives me the ability to not only hear the words others are saying, but also to perceive the emotions hiding behind the words. And so when it comes to relationships, it's like, how good of a listener are we? How present of a listener are you? How mindful are you? How connected are you? Are you already thinking about what you're going to say while they're talking? You know, sometimes I struggle with listening because I'm clairaudient and I can begin to hear some of the words that are coming through the thought process of whoever I'm talking to before they come out of their mouth. And so sometimes I can interrupt, or I'm really impatient, and it's something that I have to work really hard on. And so when I see a card about listening for relationships for the whole collective, it's something that we can all really work on in different ways. And again, if we're actually listening, if we're actually doing everything that's coming out of this collective reading, if we're slowing down, building our intuition, connecting to our heart center, being really good listeners, you know, connecting to the earth, slowing down and resting and integrating, if we actually did all of those things, what an incredible world we would have. I hope you enjoyed this collective reading for 2022 and this episode on forecasting and intentions. My name is Charlene Windus. I'm your host, and this is the Flowering Daydream podcast, where daydreams become reality. You can find me at charlenewindus.com, where you will find my forecast reading sessions are up for the month of January and February, and then they will be taken down for the rest of the year. Sometimes I can offer them by request if I have any openings, but in general, I usually only have a few openings. So if you can't get in with me and you're really interested in doing this with someone, there are a lot of practitioners out there that are doing really great work, and I know offer a variety of different kinds of forecasting and intention setting rituals. And you can also find me on Insight Timer and Udemy.